to Space Race. The Filecoin incentivized testnet competition is off to a spectacular start with 8 petabytes already committed to the network. So over the next 3 weeks, we'll be hosting a series of events where you can hear from the Filecoin team and from yourselves, the Filecoin mining community. Week 1 this week, we're starting off with a mining workshop. Tomorrow we have the opening ceremony. Later in the week, we've got the miner show and tell. And to end off the week, we've got the Space Race roundup. We'll be talking about who's top of different tables and who is our community champion. More on that later. You can find all the details of our upcoming events on spacerace.filecoin.io/events, and you can register to attend there also. We're also excited to hear from you. So if you're interested in presenting at one of our upcoming miner show and tells, then you can apply using the link in the chat. A reminder that by attending this event and all Filecoin Space Race events, that you agree to the Filecoin Code of Conduct. Okay, let's kick things off with Filecoin engineer Peter Rabbitson, who you may know from Slack and GitHub as Reba. He'll be taking us through how to troubleshoot common issues and then follow with a live Q&A. So please get those questions ready. Over to you, Reba.
Hi, everybody. So exciting times. We're finally here. The space race is launched. Sectors are sealing. People are happy, and I guess for those of you who are just joining us, I would like to go through some of the very basics in this very short presentation, and then we will going to leave pretty much the rest of this hour for any questions that would come up. So as Angie already mentioned, we are literally here. There are so many exciting things that will happen going forward. So first of all, what are we doing? We're mining Filecoin. For this stuff, we have a Slack where we talk about all kinds of things, and the central channel where all the fun is happening is #SpaceRace, and I believe somebody will drop a link in a moment of how to actually join the Slack. And we just started a new channel for extra announcements and things like that, like when you should upgrade to a new version of Lotus or anything else that is very important to the space race. The channel is called Space Race Announcements, and I very much recommend everybody who is currently in Space Race or elsewhere to join it and listen to any kind of news that we have to share with you in the coming 3 weeks. Cool. So let's jump straight into it. This is a very small, concise list of things you generally need to do in order to build Lotus. To just join if you have never done any of this before. Generally, you can use any computer as long as you have 128 gigs of memory and sufficient hard drive space. I will talk a little bit more later in the presentation about the different timings and things like that. But in order to get running, you need to install some dependencies, which I'm giving an example here for Ubuntu and Debian-based systems, but on Red Hat and others will be something similar. We need OpenCL, Build Essentials, CLang, Git, curl, JQ, the regular stuff. You need to install a recent Go 1.14. Go 1.15 might work already on the latest version of Lotus. I'm not sure about that. I believe this is already fixed. You need to install Rust in order to build the really number crunchy part of Lotus from scratch, because it is really important for the timings that I'm going to have one slide ahead. And what do we do then? Then we clone Lotus. We check out the currently latest version 0.53. There likely will be a number of other versions as we go forward and fix things through our entire run of the space race. And then you build it like this. It is important to supply these Rust flags and F5 build from source This is listed in several places in our documentation, but when people were asking questions, I have seen a number of you not do that. This is important. This will make a very big difference in your seeding performance going forward. So we built Lotus. If you already have Lotus and you want to rebuild it, even simpler. You already have everything checked out. You have everything installed. You just need to say Git Fetch to, by the way, there is a lot of commands here because Git is excellent. But basically what you need to do is you need to Git Fetch in order to get all the latest stuff from our server. You need to check out the tag that we announced in the channel that I just spoke about. You need to do exactly this because Git is weird sometimes. And then you just make everything again and you're good to go. Cool. So you're wondering, like, why do we build all of this? So what do we do? Once you are, I lost a slide. Okay, so I was going to point out how to start your Lotus node. Basically, you again follow our very good documentation, where we basically tell you to create a start the daemon, wait for it to sync the chain, which might take like from 1 hour to like 4 or 5 hours, depending how far into the space race we are. Then you create a wallet, you back it up, and then you just start the daemon. And there are a few more things where you need to go to a faucet, grab some Filecoin, but many of you already listening here are likely have gone through this multiple times already during our calibration. And if you are having trouble and the documentation is not sufficiently clear, please join us on Slack and we'll be very happy to help you. So let's get into the middle of it. For those of you who haven't done any kind of mining yet, what does mining actually involve once you have everything running? As a node in the network, you need to first tell it like, hey, I have some storage available. And you do this by issuing the command Lotus miner sectors pledge, which means that I pledge my existing space to the network, and I'm ready to keep telling the network that this space is healthy and in good standing. And you will be continuously doing this throughout the space race. In the actual live network, a lot of this will be taken by actors on the network, which are giving you data to store. So all this allocation of sectors and putting it on the network and so on and so forth will be happening automatically for you. Once you've done this, you can look how your miner is actually, how it is doing by issuing Lotus miner info. It will tell you what your current balance in Filecoin is. It will tell you how many sectors you have. It will tell you your ID. It will tell you if you have any penalties because you didn't communicate with the network correctly, things like that. And for every sector that you are currently working with, and I use the word sector, which means 32 gigabytes of data for this particular network. You can see by calling Lotus miner sectors list what sectors you have. And you can see for each individual sector what's happening with it by issuing this command, Lotus miner sectors status -- log and the number. The number starts from 0 and go to as many sectors as you have. Cool. So again, very basic stuff. I just want to run through it real quick for those of you who are not sure, what we're doing here. So what happens to a sector while it is going through the motion, so to speak? So the first thing, a sector, either we are filling it with zeros or we're filling it with deals that come from the internet. This takes about 2 minutes, depending on your hardware. Then we go through a very intensive process called precommute 1, which can take about 4 hours. And I apologize, it's 3 a.m. here, and I am making a lot of mistakes in my slides. So this particular stage is actually the one that would greatly benefit if you have an AMD CPU. And I will fix the slides before I post them for, for general consumption. So if you have an AMD CPU with a recent instruction set, this part will take 4 hours for this process to complete. And this is the main portion that is ensuring that you need to have a relatively general purpose computer and are not building weird ASICs, like, for example, in Bitcoin, where the entire point is just to get everything faster without care for the environment, for the usability of hardware, and so on and so forth. So this is what guards the network from this kind of activity. Once this takes place, and by the way, if you don't have an AMD CPU, instead of 4 hours, this very well can take I believe 11 hours. So you really want to make sure that your hardware is correct. And this building from source that I was talking about earlier, you also need to do that in order to hit this number or better. Then we have a process called precompute 2, which either will use as many cores as you have, or if you have a GPU, it will use that. So it can take about 3 hours. Then in order to synchronize everything with the network, you need to wait a little bit without anything happening on your machine. This is currently chosen for about 1 and just a little bit hours to make sure that nobody can cheat to basically try to put on the network something that they actually don't yet have. And after this finishes, then we have another 2 hours during which we again either work through on all of your CPUs, or we're using the GPUs that you have on your machine. And yes, it is correct that in general, all of this can happen faster if you have very well-tuned hardware and you were really, taking the time to tune everything during the calibration period that just finished. It was in the past 3 weeks. But in general, if you are like a hobbyist and you just put a relatively good machine together, this is kind of what you are expecting to seal a sector. And you also can always get an up-to-date requirement of various, how much memory is required, how much CPU is required by running this command. Lotus worker run help will tell you, like, in the current version of Lotus that you're running, what will be required for the expensive ones of these stages. Cool, so we covered that. Let's move forward. We're almost there. So you are mining and your miner is like doing its thing and so on and so forth. And you will, the moment you put something on the network, you will show up on our dashboard, which is on Space Race Filecoin.io. And it kind of looks like this. And if we let's unpack a little bit, what do we have here? So we have the miners and we have a certain rank. This is a particular action that each miner needs to perform during this network just to make sure that this functionality will work for everybody. This is how many sectors they have sealed so far. And this is measured in bytes. So each sector is 32 gigabytes. So for example, again, it's 3 in the morning. Actually, I'm not sure how many sectors I did 133 terabytes, but you get the idea. And then we have an interesting thing here that says like storage DDoS success rate and retrieval DDoS success rate. In order to make sure that not only we just throw storage in the network mindlessly, we put together a network to simulate what the real Filecoin mainnet will look like, where various other nodes will be contacting your miner and trying to store data on it and then retrieve it back. And this number here is exactly what is happening for each of these individual miners in real time. We have a bot, well, a series of bots that will be contacting you over and over again. I will talk a little bit about what the exact timings are for this. But if something goes wrong, you will get a particular ding. Like, for example, this person over here has like 67% success rate. And if this is you, you can totally like click open log, and you will see your types of errors and things like that. And we'll dig into this in a moment as well. Another portion that you can see here is unclaimed miner. Hold the thought. We will talk about this at the very end of the presentation. Cool. So how do these deals actually work? Every 2 to 6 hours, depending on your previous successes, your previous failures, and so on and so forth, the bots will make a deal with you. They likely will make several deals in quick succession, like 2 or 3 of them. Again, it really depends a lot on your previous interactions with the bot, because the bot has to be very careful not to overload you with deals that you cannot fulfill and then tell, well, you know, this person is not dealing with me, so I'm just going to give them 0% or something. The sizes of the deals vary depending on how much power you have already on the network, how many sectors you pledged. Some deals will be as small as 128 bytes, and some deals will be 2 gigabytes, and that's normal. After the deal is taken by your miner and after it's sealed, so this 8 hours or less, you will receive a retrieval deal from a different node. It's ran by the same people, but it's going to be actually a different address, different everything. And in order to make sure that for this particular competition that you know who to accept deals from, if you don't want to like just open yourself to the entire network and see how this goes, although there is really no harm in doing that, by default, your miner actually will accept deals from everybody. You can look in the docs and get the non-bot addresses and put them in your config so that the only deals that you will accept for the duration of the space race will be from our bots. And as I was saying earlier about the little deal set lifecycle thing here where it says N8, in order for you to get a thumbs up, like some other miners already on the live dashboard, you need to run this command at least once. Lotus miner sectors macro upgrade one of your sectors that do not have any deals in it, the sectors that you were continuously pledging throughout the space race. And that's it. You're pretty much good to go. So what kind of trouble you could run into? I'm actually very happy to report that most of the issues that have to do with the software itself have been resolved. And I am not going to talk about things like insufficient funds or insufficient gas, because ideally, you should not see this anymore. And we have been running for like a little bit over a day now, and fingers crossed, so far everything is working just beautifully. The dev team have done an amazing job taking in the lessons from the calibration network and making sure that the not very good situation that we saw there will not happen going forward. So if you go and click open log, you will see a bunch of things like that. Here I'm giving you a bunch of examples of errors that essentially mean that you were somehow not reachable. It is very important to make sure that your miner has an exposed port, that this port is static, that basically if you restart the miner, it will not change and it will not match your firewall anymore. And also very importantly, and unfortunately, I left off this slide, you need to put your address, your peer ID, and your IP and port onto the blockchain. And again, join us on Slack, and we'll make sure to again reiterate how to do that. If you do all of this and your network is not hostile, you should not see any of those. If you do, it might be that there is a temporary hiccup on the network, and that's okay. We kind of expect this, and the deals by design currently do not retry. Instead, you will receive another deal later on, and if this one succeeds and the ones after it succeed, it's great. Don't forget that this particular success rate for you is set at 80%, which means that you can stay offline for essentially 4 days straight, and you will still be considered a good participant. Of course, in the live network, we want to bring those numbers way higher than that, because 80% uptime for your storage is not that great. And the space race is a great opportunity for us to really see how many of those we get, what kind of network conditions we get into, and so on and so forth. So again, thank you very much for participating in this like dress rehearsal for our mainnet launch. So and the last slide here, I would like to hand over to my colleague Ian, who will talk just a little bit about registration, which has to do with this unclaimed miner label, and this is what Ian is going to talk to you about. Ian?
Hey, thanks, Reba. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so registration. So thanks you so much, first of all, to all the miners who have taken time to register on the dashboard so far. We've had at least 50. But if you look at the dashboard, you'll notice that there's still tons and tons of unclaimed miners. So what we need miners to do is register their miners no later than 2200 UTC on Monday, August 31st. So this coming Monday. That's exactly 1 week after the competition began. If you register your miner after this time, we can't guarantee to you that you'll be eligible to receive rewards. So it takes 5 minutes. All you need to do is go to the Space Race webpage, spacerace.filecoin.io, click the register link at the top right of the page, and follow the instructions. We've had a lot of requests from folks about how to combine different miners. First of all, you have 2 days after the registration window closes to undertake these operations. So that's 2200 UTC on Wednesday, September 2nd. When it comes to combining miners, what do I mean? So in the live Filecoin network, once mainnet launches, it won't matter very much whether you're running, lots of small miners in your operation, or you have a more complex multi-machine setup that all sort of feeds into one miner ID. It does matter for the space race. So what we're doing is allowing sort of the administrative team on the back end to manually combine your multiple small miners into one large miner just for purposes of the competition. Here's the steps to take that. As you register your miners, make sure that you use the same email address to register each one. Send an email to mining@filecoin.io, list out all of your miner IDs, and tell us what you want the display name to be for the final combined miner. Now, bear in mind, we've heard some miners talking about sort of lots of miners getting together to create a combination or things like that. That is not what this tool is intended to do. So this is if you, as an individual miner or an individual organization, have many machines that you're running and just want to combine them administratively for purposes of the contest. The point of this is not for lots and lots of different teams to get together and pool their resources. And if we identify that you're doing that, then it's possible you'll be penalized or disqualified. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Ian. And I have like one last point of general advice, which is basically informed by the many questions that we got from miners that were testing the network in the run-up to Space Race. We totally expect that all these 100% will go down throughout the Space Race. So we're looking at 99, 98, and so on, because there will be times when the network is congested. There will be times when an emergency upgrade needs to be made. And during this time, deals will not go through correctly, and the bot will say like, well, I couldn't deal right now, so we will try again. So the point of the space race is not to get 100% across the board on everything, although that's great, but the deal retrieval and storage is a pass-fail scenario. So you will not be rewarded more if you do 92% over 91. I really want to stress that. So as I say here, do not worry about it. And another thing that is a little bit jarring to pretty much everybody who hasn't dealt with Filecoin before is that your miner will be operating, it will be like doing its thing happily, and then all of a sudden something will happen on the network, and your Lotus miner info will show that your power is gone, and the dashboard will get you from, you know, however many terabytes you have down to like half of that or even a quarter of that. This is by design behavior of the network, that any time that one of your sectors does not call back home, so to speak, at the predefined time, you will get penalized by losing the power of this sector for 24 hours. If on the next 24-hour cycle, this sector phones back like, yes, I'm good, then your power will be restored, and essentially the only penalty you pay is a small number of Filecoin and the time that you spent without this power within, within your miner. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have for my short presentation. Again, I apologize for those of you who kind of knew all of this already, but there are a lot of participants who are just starting and are as excited as we are about all this stuff. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my presentation and give it back to Angie, I believe.
Thanks so much, Reba. That was really interesting, and I think super valuable for a lot of us here. If it's okay, we're going to move over to Q&A. So if you have any questions for Reba or Ian or the rest of the team, we're here to help. Obviously, we've just kicked off Space Race. Naturally, there'll be things that you're facing, and there's some troubleshooting to be done. So these are the people to ask questions to. This is your moment. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a Q&A panel. If you click on that, then you can ask whatever questions you'd like. Reba, if we start at the top with yourself, Neo has asked, he has got an error, submitting sector proof failed, exit equals 7. Do you know how to fix it?
Yes, Neo, so unfortunately, this is insufficient information to go by. We will need a little bit more of your logs. And in general, whenever you folks ask us a question on Slack, I very much recommend that you prepare a little bit like larger package, so to speak, for us to look through. This includes your Lotus version. This includes about, let's say, 20 lines of relevant log, the sector status -- log number for this particular sector, and we will be able to help you. Unfortunately, just by exit 7 is not something that I can answer in this format.
Cool. Thanks, Reba. Neo, I know that you're very active on the in the Slack, so if you can follow up there, and Reba is in there and is super active. So if you want to follow up with your logs, we'll be happy to kind of look into that for you and help you further along. Okay, next question, Reba. Stuart Berman asks, is there a way to recover from sector faults? For instance, I rebooted when a completed sector was being transferred from sealing path to long-term storage path sealed. The file was the wrong size, but I was able to manually copy the sealed sector. However, the logs show the error, and I would like to get it recovered and prove it. And Stuart has provided some error logs. Can you give us some insight into what his issue might be?
Yeah, so actually, this particular error This is new. I haven't seen it before. File is wrong size. This is really weird. My first suggestion would be to definitely file a bug about this, and I'm saying file a bug without looking at the previous issues because I haven't seen this issue before. But the general workflow is, of course, you go to Lotus issues on GitHub. You look for your particular error. Looking for something like sector file is wrong size would be excellent because it will show up right away if it's there. And if you cannot find anything, please open an issue with exactly this type of information in there. So as far as your actual question, like you were able to manually copy it and you would like to recover and prove it, I believe you will not be able to. No, you should be able to eventually prove it, but this requires that the sector has not been corrupted in some way. And file is wrong size to me implies that it got truncated or something like that. So yeah, I unfortunately do not have a better answer here, and I think we will have to take this on Slack and debug a little bit more.
Okay, great, Reba, and that's another really important point to make. Like, if you're finding issues, like please report bugs and file bugs with us. Like that's a big part of the incentivized testnet. Like we really want to, troubleshoot these things. We're lucky, obviously, to have Reba live in person doing this. Debugging live is not an easy thing, but it's brilliant that you're bringing these things up, and we're really kind of motivated to dig into them with you and kind of troubleshoot here. Okay, next question from Stuart again. How do I force, oh, sorry, I've just moved slightly. How do I force a weight deals sector to start sealing? Is this correct to push weight deals in sector 3? Reba.
Yes, so you, okay, let me talk a little bit about the terminology here. So by default, when your Lotus miner is configured, it is configured to wait for 1 hour from allocating the sector and putting the first deal that it received into it until it actually starts sealing the sector. The reason this is in place is that in the real network, in the mainnet, you for any deal that you receive that contains what we call verified data, which is basically data that is real, you will get 10 times the power from the part of the sector that is occupied by this deal. So it's very interesting to you to have as much of a 32 gigabyte sector be filled with deals of various sizes that are actual real data. So this is why your miner will wait when this is the first deal in anticipation that more deals will come in and will be able to put them in the same sector. And only then it will go like, okay, now this sector is ready, I'm going to start sealing it. Now, right now in the space race, we're obviously bootstrapping, so we do not have nearly enough people trying to make deals. And as I actually said in the presentation earlier, a lot of miners choose to filter who do they accept deals from to only our bots, and that's okay for the space race. This will not be okay in the mainnet because like the entire point for the Filecoin network is for you to store other people's data. But so in Stuart's case, there is a deal that came in and is blocking his sector now from starting to seal because it is waiting for the originally configured hour. So Stuart, you don't need to update state or anything like this because this is actually a very destructive operation. All you need to do is say Lotus miner sectors seal and number. This is the correct way to start sealing a sector that is in waiting to do things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Reba. Stuart, I really hope that helps you and answers your question. Okay, next question from Emily. What causes a miner to be slashed?
Right. So what causes a miner to be slashed? And slashing has actually two two meanings in our terminology. We're still figuring out which one's which. But the way this works in short is this way. You prepare a sector. Either you pack it with deals or it is just full of zeros, and you put it on the network. And then there is a process that happens every 24 hours called proof of space-time. So the network expects the network as this entire consensus running machinery that is observing in a distributed fashion what happens throughout the entire landscape. It expects you as this particular miner ID for this particular sector number at this particular 30-minute window to submit a computation that you cannot compute in any other way without having the entire sector ready and without expending some computing resources, be it on a GPU or on a CPU. But it takes, like, in the best of times, it takes about, I believe I've seen people do it in 6 minutes. And if you're just using like a mid-range AMD CPU with the correct instructions and stuff, it might take up to like 22 minutes or something like that. And what you do then is you submit this into the network, and the network goes like, awesome, this person still has the sector, still has the data, I'm happy about it, they keep their power. If you fail to do that, your sector gets slashed, which means that you lose the amount of power that this sector was giving you. So this is not just the 32 gigabytes of the sector itself, but remember, you could have deals in it which multiply its power. So you're going to lose everything that is given to you by this sector. And this penalty will persist for you for 24 hours until the next event for this sector to be proven rolls around. And a miner to be slashed entirely means that you missed so many sectors and you incurred so many penalties that your collateral that you put together at the time of sealing, which is basically a small amount of Filecoin that incentivize you to not just seal the sector, mine some blocks, and then just throw the entire miner away, because then you're going to throw this Filecoin that is sitting there as collateral for this particular sector. If you get slashed for a particular sector, you lose a little bit of this collateral. And if you do this for enough sectors over enough time, you're basically going to get in debt. You're going to get a negative balance on your miner. Then your miner is going to be thrown out of the network entirely, and it's as if you never existed. And the particular sets of collaterals and the entire timing and the frequency of retries and so on and so forth is all tuned in such a way that to make it best economically for you to continue storing everybody's data. And that's what it is in a nutshell.
Awesome. That's a really, really great explanation, Reba. So I think our bottom line is don't get slashed. Make sure you're storing the data, make sure that you're ready for the bot to check on it. Okay, brilliant. The next question also comes from Emily. She's asking, do I need to register to be eligible for rewards? So Ian covered this in the presentation, but I'd invite Ian or Reba to just reinforce. And I know that we've had a couple of people join us since we started. So if you want to respond to that, Ian, that'd be great.
Yeah, easy question. The answer is yes. You have to register your miner to be eligible for rewards. Like, we're very serious about this. So if you haven't registered by Monday, the 31st of August at 2200 UTC, all the work you've done to go into Space Race might be for nothing because you won't be eligible for rewards. So please go to spacerace.filecoin.io, click the register button in the top right corner, take the 5 minutes that it requires to register your miner. You will be very glad you did, and we will be as well. We definitely don't want to see anyone miss out for a silly administrative reason.
Thanks so much, Ian. Yeah, and we will post the links here in the chat so that you can get there. It just takes a few minutes, and obviously the rewards are awesome and really worthwhile. Okay, brilliant. Next question from Stuart Reba. I am on a single machine with all tasks. How do I prevent unsealed sectors from remaining in my sealing directory?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. So single machine, all tasks, how to prevent unsealed sectors from remaining in your sealed link directory. So I'm struggling to answer this because I believe this is not supposed to happen. So I think you hit another bug here of sorts, and yeah, I believe we'll need to take this into Slack again, because quite honestly, I'm not sure what the ask is here. So sorry about that.
No, that's great. And like Stuart, like we said, please like come into Slack. We can deep dive on that on those issues. And this is why we're doing Space Race, to kind of like surface some of these problems and issues. So excited to kind of like learn more about what you're facing and how we can help kind of and just bring some more of the team into that. Okay, next question. Will the calibration network still be running for tests as the Space Race is going on? And that comes from Nelson.
Yes. Hi, Nelson. So the calibration network is actually done. So you might be wondering if you're running a node, like, well, it runs just fine for me. And this is the beauty of the centralized systems. As long as sufficient amount of people keep running nodes with the calibration network set up and config and so on and so forth, it will continue running indefinitely. However, the infrastructure behind it, the dashboards, the bootstrapper nodes, the basically everything that makes this, the faucet, everything that makes this network tick is already gone. Now, we will continue working on what is now testnet / space race / our master branch by further fine-tuning Lotus to make sure that we are as ready for mainnet launch as possible. Now, don't be alarmed. We're not going to like reset the network anymore or do anything of this sort that is really disruptive, because at this point, people are really racing. But at the same time, we need to practice as much as we can how to change the tires on a moving vehicle, because we will be doing that with mainnet as well going forward. And this is the time for us to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Reba. Next question is from Herman Felker. Can we get some revamped documentation soon? It's a little bit confusing as it stands now.
Yes, Herman, I definitely feel your pain. Actually, this is how I got involved into Filecoin myself. I was originally working on a different team, but there were holes to be filled, and yeah, here we are. There is a very concerted effort going on right now to fix the documentation, to unify the documentation, to get it into basically a coherent story that is, being that is accessible to both existing users and newbies. Like, for example, some of the things I believe that I had on my slides today are not reflected in parts of the documentation. So yes, this is definitely a pain point. And there is a number of people working on this right now as quickly as they can. And hopefully now that we launch the network, there will be a little bit of breathing room for us to be able to catch up on these tasks. But yes, this is within our top 5 things that we need to fix and take care of.
Yeah, absolutely, Reba. I think from an ecosystem perspective, and like I'm on that side of Filecoin, and it's something that we're working on really, really hard. And it's great for us to get feedback like that. And also we're seeing the community sharing like tips and tricks and other things. So if you have suggestions, please like let us know in GitHub. If there are things that we can, you know, that would be better represented through documentation or graphs or like just we're really excited to hear from you what will work best, and like Reba said, we're working really hard to unify documentation, you know, and make sure that it's a great experience for people who are just joining us, but also those who have been with us for a while as well. Okay, next question from Jackie Tan. Reba, what do you think about the DDoS which miners have suffered that will affect their deal success rate and might lose qualification to win the rewards? Ian or Reba, happy for you to take this question.
Yeah, I actually would like to take Ian to take this question, and he has already turned on his camera. Yes.
Yep, perfect. One quick thing for the previous question, by the way, on the topic of documentation, there's this Filecoin user, I think his username is Jonata or something like that, who made this sort of like pirate guide to Filecoin mining to try to shore up some of the perceived shortcomings with the doc. So check it out on Slack. He posted it. It's really good. So thanks to him for making that. But like, it's an open source project. So you know, if the documentation needs improvement, please help us. Help us with suggestions. Help us with things like that. It's great. Okay, so the definition of a mining operation. This is actually included in the rules for the space race, which you can click into on the dashboard. But the definition of a mining operation is the physical location of the storage and sealing hardware. So it is acceptable to rent cloud services in Europe or in anywhere else. That's fine. Might not be cost effective, but it's within the rules. However, all of the sealing and all of the storage hardware has to be within the reason. It's not acceptable to do something like running a proxy or something of that nature. But as long as the hardware you're using is in that location, it's fine.
Okay, that follows on pretty well to our next question, Ian, if you'll stick around for a second. What's the definition of a mining operation? If I rent a server in the EU, for example, from the US, can I compete in the EU region in Space Race?
Yes, you can. So as long as, again, as long as the physical sealing and storage hardware is based in the location that you're claiming, that's totally fine and within the rules.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Reba, I think this is one for you. So we've got another question from Herman. Should I update from 0.5.1 to 0.5.4 if my miner is already up and running for the space race?
Yeah, there are actually a number of questions like this in the chat. I'll try to answer like all of them in one go. So this is getting into the area of distributed networks where we are kind of committing not to make breaking changes to the protocol. So if you have an older version, it is supposed to kind of keep operating and will eventually just drift off and not be able to either sync the chain or not be able to post correctly and so on and so forth. Now, this is in theory. In practice, we are still kind of in our late beta of Lotus, and a number of bugs are being discovered and fixed as we go. As I said multiple times already, we are committing to not break your setup anymore, so that your power, your standing, your sectors will all remain there for the duration of the space race. But we also cannot guarantee that your original node will be able to communicate with the rest of the network without without problems going forward. For instance, there are a number of fixes with the JSON RPC that are going into the next version, actually, 0.5.4, that I would recommend anyone to get, just because there is a risk that your miner, just by sitting on its own, will disconnect from the rest of your nodes, and you will just start losing power without anything else going wrong. There are some fixes for how the selection of messages that go to the network is evaluated, so the risk is reduced that some of your post messages, proof of space-time that I was explaining about a little bit earlier, if they don't make it on the network, even if you computed everything correctly, you had the data, you did everything on time, if they don't actually make it to the network so that other nodes go like, aha, this person is indeed saying they have what they're supposed to have, then you're still going to get slashed, you're going to get penalized, and so on and so forth. So the general rule is this: for the space race, unless you have very, very good reasons not to upgrade, like for example, you're running a custom build of sorts and so on and so forth, which I'll get into. There is another question about this, but in general, unless you have a very good reason not to upgrade, I would recommend upgrading at least every like 2-3 days, and for the remainder of the week, like check daily for what versions are available. And at the end of the day, all of this is open source. Like, we're not giving you a precompiled binary or anything like this, and it's on GitHub. You can actually read the list of commits and decide on your own, like, do I really want that? Do I want to take that chance? Do I care about this? Do I care about that? Our team is exercise excellent commit hygiene, so all the commit messages are actually really nice to read. They all pass their tests. So yeah, be informed. That's all I can say.
That's great, Ruba. So that's awesome. Update. Okay, next question from Brian. Will storage miners be able to purchase the pre-filled hard drives from Filecoin Discover Store after mainnet is launched?
Right. So I actually do not know the exact answer to this, but I wanted to answer this question anyway. And Ian, maybe actually know the answer. Yes. Go ahead.
I do. So the first round of Filecoin Discover hard drive sales is over. There may be more available after launch, but it's really important to note that like Discover is going to be only one very tiny source of verified client deals after mainnet launch. So focusing or fixating on those drives is probably not a great strategy. We don't have a specific timeline for when there will be more available. And like, honestly, there are not very many out there in the world even now. So I'd focus on, making your miner well set up to receive deals from verified clients after launch by focusing on things like storage quality and retrieval quality, because that's going to be much more successful for you than thinking about Filecoin Discover hard drives.
That pretty much answers the question. Yes. Again, like the drives, there has been a lot of conversation that I heard not only on Slack that the Filecoin Discover drives are a golden ticket. They're not. There are many ways to get this data. We are still working on the exact communication how this is going to work, but it will definitely be ready for mainnet.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ian and Reba. That's really great to kind of clarify. A question from Sanat. Is there a reason, oh, sorry, my goodness, this is just moved for me. Give me a second. Is there a reason why some miners could not just pre-compute and store all the sector window proofs when sealing a sector so they could send them immediately when/if asked, instead of having to compute them on the spot?
Yes, thank you, Sanat. This is actually a very good question. And the answer to this actually consists of multiple parts, because there are different trade-offs to be made. Like if you look back at my presentation, unless you're like super tuned, it takes good 8 hours to seal a sector, and the best times that we have seen so far have been like in the neighborhood of like 4.5 hours. So we need to balance this amount of complexity with exactly the attack that you just described. So one of the ways we do this is we rely on multiple sources of randomness. So it's the block height itself, the type of stuff that is already on the chain. We have an entire separate project within the protocol labs and other companies called DRAND. ran by a group called the League of Entropy, which is actually a distributed network, just like Filecoin or Ethereum, but that only focuses on delivering randomness to parties in a synchronized fashion. So in short, the reason you cannot precompute and store the window posts is because the particular challenge that will be issued for your window to make the post calculation will include a number of things that are essentially impossible to predict up until the moment that the actual challenge is being issued. So that's the reason why you cannot do that.
Thanks, Reba. I think we're coming up to our last couple of questions here. So thank you so much for staying with us and answering all of these questions live. I think I speak for everyone on here. It's really, really useful and helpful to kind of dig into these details, especially in the early days of Space Race. So next question from, let me see, so many questions to be fair. Thank you so much to everyone who's participating as well. This is really, really great and useful for the team to kind of dig into things. Next question, I think, bear with me a second. Let's see here. What is the best way to update Lotus software for miners, daemon, and workers to minimize risk? And that's from JC.
Yes, this is an excellent question, something that we unfortunately have a little bit of like it's underdocumented present. So there are two things that we are working on. Number one, we are working on a document to describe when it is safe to shut down both a miner and a node and a worker. Because right now it's not clear exactly when you can do this. There are actual windows of opportunity that once you compile everything and you basically just need a shutdown and turn back up, there are sufficient amount of windows where you can do that, but it's not very clear where exactly you can do that. So this is one thing that we are definitely going to document in the next week or so, I hope. And another thing that we're working on is the ability to actually pause workers. So they will kind of freeze doing what they're doing and then fall off one after another after they have done their job. So essentially what you will be able to do is you'll be able to upgrade your Lotus node first, then upgrade your miner by freezing all the workers, telling them like, hold up, and the miner will go up and down, and then they'll reconnect to it again. And then to the workers, you can tell like when you're done with whatever you're doing right now, do not do anything else and just shut yourself down, and then you will have to start a different one in this place. We did not get a chance to fully test this yet. This is why it didn't ship with Space Race on day one, but there is definitely work being done to make this possible.
Great, thanks, Reba. On to the next question from Ian Bakewell. What's the largest sector size you can seal/assign? If you have a lot of storage, 8+ HDD in a system, for example, could you speed up bringing storage online by increasing sector size dramatically?
Right, so for this particular network and for mainnet at first, we really don't know what next year will bring. For now, all you can do is 32 gigabyte sectors and 64 gigabyte sectors. The time to prove them is identical, so you would win more from having 64 gigabyte sectors as you need to ongoingly produce the post messages to basically say like, yes, I have this data. However, the actual sealing time is double the amount of time it takes for the 32 gigabyte sector. So the onboarding of this data will be about the same amount of time. There are parts of the 64 gigabyte sector process that are a little bit faster per gigabyte, but you need more memory, which is difficult to scale. Like for 64 gigabytes, for 32 gigabyte sectors, you already need 128 gigs of memory. For 64 gigabyte sectors, you need something in the 196 range. It actually hasn't been very very well tested right now because it just takes longer, and pretty much everybody's kind of focusing on 32 gig sectors. But you're more than welcome to play with 64 gigabyte sectors and let us know how it works.
Awesome. We love that. A bit of experimentation goes a long way in these things, right? Okay, I think we're going to take one last question here. As Riva said, I think it's very early in the morning for him, and he's been a fantastic presenter. So we'll let him go to bed. The last question comes from Storage Hive Inc. I've got a mixture of different hardware and found the default scheduler logic doesn't work well for me. Is it okay if I tweak scheduler code for my use case?
Right. So I'm going to say something controversial here. Nobody likes the default schedule logic right now. So by all means, number one, yes, you can tweak it as much as you want, because at the end of the day, the schedule is literally something that's on your machine only. It doesn't communicate with the consensus, with the network in any way. So you are free to do anything you want. Moreover, I very much encourage you to share whatever you discover or come up with. There is already a group on Slack that is kind of sharing their way of doing things. I believe one of our earlier questions were from somebody that does this. Stuart has been experimenting with running multiple workers within 128 gigs of memory, which is really cool. So yeah, by all means, like join us on Slack and share anything you feel like you could share, because if your particular scheduler logic is nice, both in terms of that it is cleaner, it performs better, or it utilizes the hardware better, or all of the above, the team will be very, very happy to both include it into Lotus and maintain it for you going forward. So you will never have to worry about, oh, I have this custom branch, now I need to upgrade, so I need to rebase my changes, so I need to make sure it doesn't break. Yeah, this is how open source works.
You gotta love open source, and that's why we're all here right now. We really encourage everyone to not just participate in Space Race, but Filecoin is an open source project. We're excited to see the different bugs that you discover, like help us improve the documentation. Thank you so much to Riva, who got up at crazy o'clock in the morning to be with us and answer all of our questions live, and hopefully help a lot of folks as they kind of continue on their Space Race journey. A huge thank you to our production team. I think some of them are up in the middle of the night as well. And a huge thank you to Ian, also on the Filecoin team, who has helped answer some questions tonight. Just a couple of reminders from my side. So this is just the start of the Space Race event schedule. We've got a lot more coming your way. I will just share this now. I think, here we go. So upcoming in Space Race, if my computer will be well behaved. So tonight we had the mining workshop. Tomorrow at 10 p.m. UTC, we have the opening ceremony with Filecoin founder Juan Benet and a number of members of the Filecoin team. So we hope you can join us. We're going to be talking about the Space Race program generally. On Thursday, we have the Miner Show and Tell. There's a link in the chat just now. If you'd like to present at that and talk about your architecture, about your hardware, about your team, about why you're excited to mine on Filecoin, then we're really excited for you to kind of share your journey. And then on Friday, every Friday, we're going to have a Space Race roundup. So we're going to be talking about who's top of the leaderboard globally and in each continent. We're going to talk about the folks who have been really great to the community by helping folks in Slack, reporting bugs, etc. So keep that awesome stuff going. And then in week 2, we've got loads more stuff coming your way as well. There is a page for this. It's just, Emily will link it in the chat. And you can register for all of these events there. Just a huge thank you to join us this evening. We're excited to spend more time with you over the coming weeks. And that's it from us this evening. Thanks so much again, and see you all soon. Take care. Bye.